Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Grue Show. And for the Grue Show today, we have a great guest. He's a writer and director, and he wrote and directed this amazing horror film. I've already seen it twice. It is on Shudder, and I think it's streaming on AMC too. I'm not sure, but I know for sure it's on Shudder. It's called Slapface, and I just interviewed Mike Manning and August Maturo, who are the two stars of the movie Slapface, and they were amazing to talk to. And now I am about to talk to the man who wrote it and directed it. And fun fact, Slapface was a short film before it was turned into a full-length film. And we're going to talk to Jeremiah Kipp. I am Rocco Cross. I am the host at Stutters, and I am the host of the Grue Room. And my interview with Jeremiah is coming up next. Okay, welcome to Grue, and thanks so much for taking time out of your night and coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So, like, first thing I wanted to ask you is, like, what drew you to want to write and direct films?
Well, I grew up in a very rural part of Rhode Island, and there were woods all around the house and everything. And, it's kind of being a loner, my imagination took hold, and I started just, imagining a lot of stories. And I grew up with my grandparents, and they were game on for letting me watch whatever it was that I wanted to watch. So I tended to watch a lot of horror movies. So when I was little, I watched movies like Dawn of the Dead and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I really loved those movies. And as a little kid, like, I didn't really make a distinction between Grimm's fairy tales with Hansel and Gretel finding the witch in the gingerbread house and, the monsters of the movies. So when my grandparents got a VHS camcorder, I don't think they intended to make movies with it. I think they were just using it to record family gatherings and stuff like that. Okay. But I immediately started getting all my friends together saying, bring army jackets, you guys are gonna be soldiers, and you guys wear raggedy old clothes that we can cut up, you guys are gonna be zombies attacking the house. And I must have made 300 of those movies.
Oh my God, really?
Growing up and getting all my friends to play make-believe with me. From there, I applied to film school, and I went to New York University, and I took like a good 3 minutes from those 300 shitty movies that I made in my backyard and like cut together a little reel, and then moved to New York and studied at NYU, which was the alma mater of Spike Lee and Martin Scorsese and Jim Jarmusch, like a bunch of great filmmakers who I admire. And I stayed in New York. I've lived in New York City ever since, and have been making movies pretty much the whole time, mainly directing in the past like 12 years.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was looking on your page, your IMDb page, and you've done a lot. You directed a lot, wrote a lot.
I love making films, and whenever I'm given the opportunity, I do it. So I've done Slapface's feature number 6. I'm starting feature number 7 on March 1st down in Savannah, Georgia, which I'm really excited about, another horror film.
Nice.
But yeah, whenever I get the opportunity to work, I take it because I love making things and I love working with like-minded creative people. So it's been a lot of short films, some television, some music videos, and some features. And here we are.
Wow. I mean, I'm a huge horror fan, and
yeah,
I see like you're a big horror fan as well. So, like, what made you fall in love with horror? Because it looks like the films you love doing the most are the horror films, right?
Yeah, I have made other kinds of movies, but whenever possible, I love doing horror films. It's my favorite genre to work in. I just find it really, it just allows the imagination to unfold. I mean, once you introduce a monster into the story, then anything goes. It's not in naturalistic reality anymore. But I also loved the emotional impact that horror films had on me. Like when I watched David Cronenberg's The Fly, Like
Yeah.
I was crying at the end of that movie, and I was as moved by that as any Academy Award winning drama. To me, there's no distinction. Like The Fly is doing the same thing that dramatic films do, only it involves one of the characters turning into a giant monster.
Yes.
And I think that what's so great about that movie and movies like that is if you were making a film about someone rotting away from cancer, it would be nearly unbearable to watch.
Oh yeah.
But because Jeff Goldblum is turning into a giant fly, it's a distancing device that allows the viewer to like experience the tragedy of the story and be able to continue watching it with fascination as he evolves. And then by the end of the movie, we're in tears. We're just crying
Yes.
at the tragic loss of this great love story that has ended in such a cataclysm.
Yeah, that movie is so good. Definitely
It
classic.
holds up. My
Oh
God.
my God. Like, yeah, to this day, like films like that and The Shining, like those are
Yeah.
films that anyone from any age, any era could watch.
And then these films sometimes like live on beyond their initial shelf life. Like my favorite horror movie, or one of them at least, is John Carpenter's The Thing. And
Yes.
that movie
Yes.
is, I mean, any horror fan will tell you that that is flat out extraordinary, with the
Yeah.
most brilliant practical effects and the most amazing cast and great locations. John Carpenter directs it beautifully. The score is uncanny, but like it was a box office failure when it first came out, which is shocking when you look at it today,
Right.
because it's a classic. And I was really happy reading the trades the other day, because John Carpenter got fired from directing Firestarter because of the box office failure of The Thing back in 1984. He was supposed to direct Firestarter, and we just imagine what that could have been.
Oh
But the
my
good
God.
news is they, of course, have remade Firestarter,
Yeah.
and the score is by John Carpenter, and I think Cody
Oh.
Carpenter as well. So in a weird sort of way, he is able to put his imprint on a film that he really, really wanted to make back in the day. And so, the movie may be good, it may not, but at the
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
least, we'll get a new John Carpenter score, which is cause for celebration.
Right. Exactly. I mean, he's brilliant. Anyone
So brilliant.
who could come up with the Halloween theme is wow.
I know, it's so genius and so simple,
Yeah.
like, I mean, that's the key to these great John Carpenter scores, is the simplicity of them. And the synthesizer sound is so specific to the late 70s and early 80s.
No.
Like it captures a moment in time that we really can't forget.
Oh, definitely. One of my like best films of his is the Prince of
Prince of
Darkness. I
Underrated,
love that
yeah.
movie.
Another great Donald Pleasance performance.
Yes.
Another
And
great John Carpenter score too.
yes.
Sometimes I've been writing a new script recently, and sometimes I've been listening to Prince of Darkness
Oh,
while I'm
really?
writing it, because that soundtrack, that score, just so obsessive and so
Oh,
immersive.
I know. And the great Alice Cooper is in it. So
Alice Cooper's cameo, yeah, he shows up and is spectacular. Like I mean, if you're gonna have a non-speaking cameo with less than
that's
4 minutes,
the end.
5 minutes of screen time, like that's the way to do it. He has such a strong presence in that film.
Mhm. Definitely. So like Slapface was a short film that you did a couple years ago. And how similar and how different is the short film from the current film that's out?
Well, it's so interesting to talk about that, because there are some changes between the short and the feature. I should say that the short, actually, there was a feature-length script that existed before I made the short. So I was trying to get it made with various producers, and they
Oh
couldn't
wow.
get it off the ground for all sorts of reasons. So I kind of had given up on that movie. I was like, all right, I guess I'm never making Slapface. And my director of photography, Dominic Civilli, who also shot the feature,
Mm-hmm.
encouraged me. He said, why don't we go make a short? We'll do a 5-minute proof of concept, and like we'll put it on our reels, and we'll play the film festivals and see what happens. And we made that short, and I thought, well, if nothing ever happens beyond this, I'll be
Yeah.
happy, because I at least got to express a part of the story that I wanted to tell. So we did the film festival thing for 3 years, and the
Oh
difference
wow.
is in that version of the story was that it was a father and a son. And that was true in the feature length script as well. It was a father-son story, and the mother was gone. And when along the festival circuit, the project came to the attention of producers Joe Benedetto and Mike Manning, and they were looking for a dysfunctional family drama with something supernatural in it. I think because other films had come out, like Hereditary and The Witch and The Babadook, which are all great films.
Oh yeah.
Before those movies came out, I think it was kind of hard for producers to see what I had in mind. You know, it's like that there weren't a lot of, you know, character-driven story. You know, there weren't a lot of these sort of naturalistic stories that were highlighting like the performances in the horror genre until you saw Toni Collette blow everyone away in Hereditary, and the performances in The Witch are so extraordinary, and that script is so beautiful. I think it enabled Mike and Joe to say, we want something like that. And when they found Slapface, they said, yes, this is the one we want to do. Now, Mike, who is also a wonderful actor, read the script and said, what if instead of a father, it were an older brother? I was very resistant to the idea initially because, back to John Carpenter, I hated the remake of John Carpenter's The Fog so much, where they recast all of these interesting actors from the 1980 film to be like younger and prettier. You know, like everybody looks so attractive, and all the character and personality that was there in John Carpenter's film went out the window. And I mean, for that and many other reasons, it's a pretty terrible remake. But I was like, I don't want to do that to this movie. I'd rather not make the film than make a prettified version of this rough, hard, dark, intense story that is uncompromising. And Mike was like, look, let's just get on the phone for a little bit and let me really present my idea. And we got on the phone for an hour and a half, and we talked not as director and producer, but really as director and actor. And he said that he's not interested in playing the boy next door, that he wants to challenge himself, and he wants to do something that allows him to see a character in all of his complexity, who has deep personal flaws and issues with addiction, and can be construed as a horrible human being, but he doesn't think that he is. Like, he doesn't think that he's using his kid brother. He thinks that he's being a parent in the best way that he knows how. And being sympathetic to Tom, it's like if he's playing Slapface with his younger brother, it's all stuff that he learned from his dad. So he's just applying the rules that he learned from growing up the way that he did in a rough, lower income family. And then Mike got very personal. He told me a lot of personal things about his own life that allowed him to plug into the character. Now, Mike is not abusive or an alcoholic.
I know.
And he doesn't have like Tom's problems. He's a wonderfully compassionate and caring human being. And like, if he has any problems, I don't know about them. He doesn't. His problems seem to be more that he likes producing independent films, which is a really hard job, where you get no gratitude from anybody. It's like the producer of a film essentially puts the whole party together, invites everybody, lays out all the food, you know, makes an epic presentation, is not invited to the party, and has to clean up afterwards. That's basically the life of a film producer.
Really?
So if he
I
has
never knew that.
has any addiction, he's addicted to that, you know, which is, but like, you know, I think Mike would say that the great thing about producing movies is that you get to do what he did on Slapface, which is to creatively build a project from the ground up. And once Mike and I chose to have him play Tom as an older brother, we were partners. You know, it became just as important to him making this movie as it was to me, because he loved that character so much, and he loved the story so much. And since I'd been trying to make this thing for so long, we found a way to work together in that way that was really that illuminated the story for me in ways that I hadn't imagined. When I did the rewrite and made Tom the older brother, suddenly the character became so much more interesting. Suddenly there was possibility for Tom to redeem himself. Suddenly it was a guy who was genuinely doing his best, but is too young to be raising a child and has no tools to do it. So Mike Manning is not only a wonderful producer who found the investors and put this entire package together and got it made, he also gave a really soulful, stirring, beautiful performance that had so much truth in it. And I hope I get to make many more films with Mike Manning, because our director-producer collaboration was as personally and professionally satisfying as our actor-director relationship.
Yeah, Mike is so awesome. Like
So good.
I've had Mike on the show probably about four times now, and
Yeah.
me and him get along great. And
Yeah.
Mike
He's a
is
great
a really
guy and a
great
real
guy. Like
talent.
he's so nice. Yeah. And I mean, and you were saying like the the acting in this film is so good. I mean, you got Mike, of course, who's brilliant, but then
Yeah.
you got August too, who is his
Yeah.
emotional scenes. Like you can really feel like the emotions that August puts into the film, and he's at like such a young age, and he's able to do that.
Yeah, he was 12 years old when we made the movie and such a powerful actor. That
Yeah.
was the next order of business. Once we were ready to, once we were ready to start casting, the first decision was who is going to play the little boy at the center of this movie, because that actor has to carry this entire picture. Uh, and it's funny because whenever you're casting, you make lists of names of all the
Hmm.
people that you're interested in. I'm sure you may have heard this story from Mike already, but like the great thing was that Mike Manning and the casting director Carolyn Sinclair and I all said we want August Maturo for this role. Now, August had done that horror film, The Nun, which
Yeah.
made our investors happy because that movie made millions and millions of dollars. But like the thing that I really loved about August was that in addition to that, which is great, he'd done a number of independent films, and he'd done 5 years on a TV show called Girl Meets World, where he
Yep.
showed an enormous range. He is so emotionally available. He is so smart. He it's, we auditioned a bunch of other kids too, just in case August passed. But there were a lot of good child actors, but it was very hard for them to do all of the things that this character needs to do. Like it's very hard for a 12-year-old to summon up great rage and
Oh
sustain
yeah,
it. It
exactly.
is very hard for a child actor to delve into trauma. It is very hard for a child actor to express grief and mourning. And this character is like bottled all that stuff up inside. So it wasn't even we want the most expert crier. It's that we want the most expert person that has a rich inner life.
Mhm.
And so then August was that guy. Like everybody circled him. Thankfully, August read the script and he felt it was very powerful, and it felt like it was exactly what he wanted to do at that point in his career. And it was really a blessing to all of us. The next question became, is August going to be a brat? Is his mom going to be like a mean stage
Yeah,
mother
that's true.
who's
That's
going to like
true. Yeah.
lord power over this production? And we just didn't know that because none of us knew August or Maha, his wonderful mom. Uh, but then we started rehearsing, and it was immediately obvious that August was there for the movie and really cared. He's got a real artist soul.
Oh, I know.
I'm in my 40s, and like talking to August, it didn't feel like talking to a child actor. It was like
Exactly.
talking to a peer. It was like talking to a colleague. It was like we made August a partner on this film because he had to be there every step of the way,
Oh
every
yeah.
step of the making process. He had to be deeply involved and then bring it every single day. Fortunately for us, he's a great actor. He's a wonderful person. He's very sensitive. He really won over the crew. Like on day
Oh, I'm
3,
sure.
he said during lunchtime, he's like, "I'd like to read a poem to you guys," and they all kind of rolled their eyes a little bit. And we're like, and me too. I was like, "Oh boy, here we go, a little poem, poem time," you know. And then he read it, and he was like, "I wrote a poem about making this movie," and we all thought, "Oh boy, here we go." But then he read it, and it was like so moving. And it wasn't really about the filmmaking process. It was more about like we shot in the fall, and he was writing about the gradations of light and the turning of the
Hmm.
leaves, and about the way that like winter creeps into the air, and
Yeah.
how like October feels like a season that slowly takes over everything. And it was really rich and really thoughtful. And we all said, this kid is wonderful. This kid is
He
so
is.
creative and so full of spirit. And then the crew was like, we'll do anything to support him. We'll do anything to help this guy. And August got the highest compliment at the end of the shoot. Dominic Savilli, the director of photography who I mentioned
Hmm.
earlier, he actually lost his mother and father at a very early age. He wasn't much older
Oh.
than August when he lost his mother.
Oh
And he wasn't
wow.
much younger than August when he lost his father. Uh, And so he was shooting these scenes, and he was so incredibly moved by August's performance, particularly in scenes where because August's character does not freely admit what's going on with himself, but like
Yeah.
every now and then he'll say, "My parents are dead," or he'll share a little bit of his sense of loss. And on the last day after we'd wrapped, like Dom gave August a hug and said goodbye. And was like, "I want you to know that whenever you did those scenes, it really spoke to me because that's how I felt." Like that really expressed a feeling that I held in my heart for my childhood and my teenage years. And I think that really meant a lot to Dom, and it meant a lot to August. But that's the kind of thing that we were going for with this movie, was we wanted to create a horror film with a monster in it, but also like tell a story that could feel that could have a lot of emotional truth in it,
Yeah.
and they could talk about like real human frailties and genuine the real terrors that we have in our lives, which involve abuse.
Mhm.
And one of the things that the movie is talking about is like, who is the monster? Because I think it's more about like when Tom is slapping his kid brother in a ritualized form of punishment, and then you show the little boy with the monster running and playing
Yeah.
in the woods, like who is the
Yeah.
monster?
Right.
And the
Yeah, I
monster
know. That's what I was saying
sometimes
when I was
like
watching.
really loves the little boy and will do anything to protect the little boy. And
Mhm.
sometimes that will come in the form of great violence and great destruction, but it's coming from a place of protection and care. So like anywhere we could blur the lines between what we perceive as being right and wrong, and what we perceive as being good and evil in this movie, was fun for us. But framing it as a horror film was what enabled it to be a little more fun for me, because I love
Mhm.
creatures. I mean, ever since I saw Sesame Street with Cookie Monster, I loved creatures. When you watch Pan's Labyrinth or Boris Karloff as Frankenstein, as Frankenstein's monster,
Yeah, yeah.
you lean towards the monster.
Yeah,
You're like, the
exactly.
monster is alone, the monster wants a
Exactly.
friend, the monster needs somebody. Even in Candyman, where like there's intones of Dracula, you feel like
Mhm.
Candyman wants to be recognized and seen, and have a legacy and have love. And that's the way we felt about our monster, was that she has wants and needs and desires, and it's not just a brutalizing thug that is there, like, killing people off. Like, she has very strong motivations for doing them.
Oh, yeah,
Now, I
of
hasten to
course.
add that I love slasher movies, and my first feature was the slasher movie with Tom Savini killing people in the woods. So I have no problem
Nice.
with that
Nice.
kind of roller coaster ride of a movie. Like, I derive great joy from watching them. Uh, but with Slapface, we wanted to tell the story where the roller coaster ride is emotional, and like if the viewer is moved to tears,
Mhm.
the way that I felt, let's say at the end of The Fly, which we were talking about
Yeah.
before, then I would feel like we accomplished something that we set out to do, which was to make an emotional horror film.
Oh, it definitely was, like, I'm not gonna give spoilers or anything, but the way you ended it is definitely it definitely has that fly that 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 fly thing, for the ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you were saying about the witch, like, when I was watching the film, the witch, I was telling August this in the last interview, and I said, like, the way the witch was, like, she really wasn't. I mean, yeah, you can't go around killing people. I can't say she wasn't
Right.
evil, but it, she definitely had love and compassion, because she was all by herself, and Lucas comes around, and she has a, a friend now, and she cares for the friend, and whenever she sees the friend in trouble, she goes after the people because she don't know any better.
Yeah.
And, Luke
We were at a
Hassel did an
I
amazing
was
job.
attending a watch party recently that Shudder put together, and it was really exciting. Like the audience was responding in real time, and it was really exciting watching so many of them be on Team Monster.
Yeah,
Which sometimes you don't expect, because it's like you would think the monster to be the villain of the piece, but it's always surprising how many people love the monster and
yeah,
consider themselves to
exactly.
be on Team Monster. And it's kind
Yes.
of like that old Disney movie, The Fox and the Hound. You
Mhm.
want the fox and the hound to be friends, but the fox and the hound cannot be, because of the nature of their roles. Like, they're going to be forever in conflict. And yet as an audience member, you hope that there's a way that this can work out for everybody. You hope that there's a way that they can retain this friendship and prevent their own deep-seated loneliness, so that Lucas can have the feeling of having a mother, and the witch can
Exactly.
have the feeling of having a companion. So all that tender stuff was really important to us. I also, the actor who played the witch is Lucas Hassel, and Lucas played the monster in the short film as well.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a carryover from short to feature. I remember that whenever we did screenplay readings of the feature-length script, I would always cast Lucas Hassel as the reader, which is like it's the least exciting role of any of the actors doing a staged reading. However, like a lot of my screenplays don't have a lot of dialogue, so I always hire the best actor to be the reader. I put them right in the center, and I say, you have to talk directly to the audience and make this film feel very real to them. And with Lucas, I also said, you have to make the monster feel very real to the audience.
Exactly.
After a couple of times of reading the script, like Lucas said, if you ever get a shot at making this movie, I'd like to take a crack at playing the monster. I feel like I understand her. And when Lucas got into the makeup and the wardrobe, he's 6'5", I think, in regular life. And then with the shoes on, we got him up to 7 feet tall.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
it was a real collaboration making that monster with Lucas Hassel, who did such a brilliant, he gave the monster such a strong sense of self,
Yeah.
and whose physicality brings the monster to life for the viewer. Because I think the greatest special effect is an actor. Without a great actor like Boris Karloff or Lucas Hassel, it's just paint and rubber. But the actor physicalizes the effects. Now the rubber and paint, as it were, was made by Sandy Washington and Tony O'Brien, who
Okay.
constructed the idea for the special effects. Was what if you took the witch from old-timey legend, from Hansel and Gretel, but you put that witch face on top of this elongated dysmorphic body? Because you think of like the witch as the little lady, but what if the
Right.
witch were on
Exactly.
top of like a body that is like Frankenstein's monster? Suddenly it's got this very bizarre shape to it.
Mm-hmm.
The third person who contributed was wardrobe, Anna Davis, who created this amazing cloak. Because in the script, we talk a lot about how the monster would blend in with the trees. And Anna was like, well, what if we made that very literal and made the robe almost look like the bark of a tree? And then there could be like a hood that could like be like make the face of the monster even more mysterious and keep the monster in shadow. And then Lucas Hassel was like, well, that's great. What if I had a belt with a bunch of trinkets and toys on it
Nice.
to suggest this
Nice.
like long life of the monster encountering many children in this town? And then it went on and on with the sound designer, Michael Odmark. When he came on, creating the sound of the monster was an interesting thing because it wound up being a mix of many different kinds of sound. So it was animals, like beast sounds, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
cicadas and insects, and it was like old person breathing sounds,
Oh
and
wow.
like settling dust and things like that. Like it was layer upon layer of soundscape whenever the monster shows up. And so we wanted to give this monster an incredibly strong physical presence in the space. So I think all of the department heads had a finger in the making of the monster, and I'm really
Oh wow.
delighted with
That's
all of their
awesome.
work. It's a real shared achievement for all of them. So anything that people love about the monster, I really attribute to all of those great people who contributed.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot of work that went into that. Wow.
Yeah.
And like I was telling you, I just interviewed like Mike and August, and they talk so great about you and working for you. And what did you love most about making the film?
Well, I love all aspects of making the movie. I think every single part of the movie is constitutively important. So the script has to be extremely tight before you go and shoot. And then, like, weirdly though, when you go and shoot, you want to be open to all the possibilities of what can happen. And I really love actors, and I really love when they're able to bring their ideas into the scene. And I
Hmm.
like to be surprised. I like for things to happen. I think only when the script is extremely tight and every single scene is clear, then you can like play a little bit on the set and find things. So if an actor had an idea while we were blocking and rehearsing, I'd be like, let's try it. you know,
Yeah.
let's try it. Sometimes I'll even do it during a take. I'm like, just show me what you're
Oh,
gonna do.
okay.
I like to do a couple different takes, a couple different ways, and then we find it in the edit. But
Hmm.
every single crew member is important. You know, if you know, you need a director of photography who is going to shoot it very precisely. The lenses, we chose anamorphic lenses. We shot in widescreen. Back to John Carpenter. I mean, like, you
Yeah.
know, we all horror filmmakers who shoot in widescreen have a tip of the hat to the great John Carpenter. The production design, it's like this film needed to feel grounded and real. So you needed to feel the, like, one of the inspirations, not, I would never compare myself to the great Steven Spielberg, but I
Hmm.
loved watching E.T. because the house in E.T. and the scuffed up floors and the level of
Yeah.
detail
Yeah.
in the house are so real and so grounded in 1981, 1982 culture that when ET shows up, you're primed to believe anything that exists in this reality because it all feels so truthful. And Kat Van Cleve, our production designer, did such amazing work. Like, and, you know, one of the things I really liked was that there were a lot of books in the house. You know,
Mhm.
like if you
Yeah,
look in the frame, there
exactly.
are a lot of books everywhere. Just because someone
Yes.
is poor doesn't mean they're unimaginative.
Hmm.
And since they do not appear to have a television, you know, they're probably getting most of their entertainment from their phone and from books. You know,
Yeah.
which I think like probably accounts for why the little boy has such a rich inner life. So what do I like most about directing? I like all of it. You know, I enjoy every step of the process. You
Hmm.
can't take your eye off the ball for 1 second. You can't phone it in ever, because every single thing that you see in the movie is going to help tell the story. And, you
Exactly.
know, like at the end of the day, you do the thing to the best of your ability. You care about every single department. You care about the edit, how the story is told. You care about the music. Barry Neely's score like contributed so much to the subtext of the movie, and
Hmm.
in many ways gave the monster a voice and gave the introspective life of Lucas a voice. You know, all of these artists, you know, you want the thing that's great is you're not alone when you're making these things. You're working with a lot of amazing creative people who have great ideas. And if you listen to them and say, yes, yes, let's try that, let's try that, you know, you're going to wind up with layer upon layer of interesting work. Now, once the movie is done, it goes out into the world. It does the festival thing,
Yeah.
which is wonderful. I love that. I love the festival audiences. I love when critics respond to the movie, and I love that it's on Shudder because I like a lot of the movies that are on Shudder. If I
Hmm.
started making a list of all the movies on Shudder that I like, we would be here for a while. But there are a lot of films and filmmakers that I greatly admire. I'll name one, like Jacob's Wife, I think is a great movie with great performances and a great story. You know, that's the level of quality that I aspire to. I would love to meet the director of that film and have a cup of coffee and learn all about how he did it. But the other great thing is that when you finish the movie, it is no longer up to you. You know,
Yeah.
it belongs to the audience,
Yeah.
and they can take it, they can love it, they can hate it, they can feel in between about it. It belongs to them. You know, and of course, it feels great when you read reviews or you hear about audiences crying at the ending of the movie. Like all that
Hmm.
stuff matters to me. Like I really care about how the film affected the viewer. Um, but you know, I mean, I'll be honest. Like Paste Magazine trashed us and gave us a really negative review and said Jeremiah Kipp is crap. And I
Wait,
howled with
what?
laughter while
Really?
I read that thing. I thought it was great. You know, I thought it was a really well written negative review. You
Oh,
know, so I was
wow.
like, you know what, you got to accept that. The minute you
Oh,
start
yeah,
putting
of
out work into the
course.
world that is personal, then you got to accept that everybody is going to have a different reaction to
Oh,
it. And
yeah.
I value all the different reactions to it. Whenever I get the chance to talk to somebody who had a mixed feeling about the movie, I'm really
Hmm.
interested to find out why. And, you know, sometimes people change their minds. There was a British critic who gave us a very, 2.5 star, mixed review when it
Okay.
screened at Fright Fest. This critic who I really admire. And then, just recently, that critic was talking, saying, I love Slapface and everybody should
Really?
see it. And like this, I'm a real fan of this movie. And I was like, yeah, it's like, critics can change their minds. When he
I
first
guess
saw
so.
it, he had a certain feeling about it. And then he saw it again when it was on Shudder,
Yeah.
and his feelings changed. And like his memory of the film had gotten deeper and deeper. So that's why I think that
Mm.
even if somebody has a mixed reaction to Slapface, it's the kind of movie that when people tell me it stayed in my mind and it haunted me and I want to
Mhm.
talk to you about it or I want to talk to somebody about it, like I think that's a really valid reaction. So I'm grateful for all the responses. I'm really excited because I think that the great thing about Shudder is they program many, many, many different kinds of movies.
Yeah,
And when they
exactly.
picked Slapface, they said, we want this kind of movie as well,
Oh
which really
wow.
excited me because, you know, I love Terrified, which is
Oh
the
yeah,
Argentinian,
yeah. Art.
like very bizarre, like things are popping out of nowhere kind of chaos movie. And I like Terrifier, which is this clown who is
That evil
slashing
looking
everybody every
clown.
10 minutes and totally great gory FX scenes. And I feel like those things and Slapface can exist in the same horror universe
Yeah.
on Shudder, because Shudder allows like a wide variety of genre films. And I know for myself, I like watching many different kinds of horror films.
Oh,
Uh,
same,
so for
same.
Slapface to be on Shudder is honestly a dream come true. I'm so happy that it's there, and they've been so generous with the film and so supportive, and the way they've been putting it out into the world has been so thoughtful.
That's so. I mean, I love watching, like, just like you. I love watching the horror films on that channel. Like they got some really great ones.
Yeah, really great.
And I don't want to take up a lot of your time, so I'm gonna ask like one final question. And what with without giving too much away, I mean the film's been out a while and fans have seen it, and the fans that I talk to love it, and including me. Like I watched it twice. And what what scene did you really love the most from the movie?
Wow, that's a challenging question because I really love a lot of different scenes in the
Hmm.
movie. I'll pick two because I like to choose both.
Okay.
Uh, from a visual standpoint, I really love there's a strange sequence that culminates in the little boy and the monster standing on the top of the hill looking at the sun
Oh
setting.
yeah.
So it moves from what what appears to be a crazy, potentially violent scene into a very tender,
Hmm.
beautiful one. And I thought that that kind of summed up the themes of the movie without any dialogue. It's like the beauty of the soulful side and the madness and the chaos and the violence can exist strangely side by side, coexisting. But the other scene that I really enjoy, really because it was a dream come true shooting it, was one of the movies that made me want to become a film director was Blood Simple, the first feature from Joel and Ethan Coen.
Okay.
And Dan Hedaya plays Frances McDormand's husband in that movie. And it's a crime noir thriller, and it feels very scary. Like there's a murder in that movie where they can never be able to clean up all the blood or get rid of the body. It's like
Oh
really
wow.
intense film, great film. And Dan
Huh.
Hedaya is in that. So when we wound up casting Dan Hedaya as the sheriff, it was very meaningful to me because this was a guy that was important to me when I was August's age.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when we filmed the scene between August and Dan, where it's the sheriff trying to draw a story out of Lucas, uh, it was done with such tenderness on both sides of that table. And the rehearsal for that scene was really neat and really interesting because August and Dan had never met one another before that day. And really before that scene, they barely got a chance to talk to each
Oh
other.
wow. Okay.
But their characters had to have known each other for a long time. So Dan did a neat little trick, which was when we rehearsed, Dan would mirror August's behavior. So if August was doing this, then Dan would do this. And if August was doing
Wow.
this, then Dan would do this. It's an old acting trick, but it's also something that
Oh.
people sometimes do when they're dating, which is when you mirror somebody, it makes the other person feel like there's a connection between you guys. You know, sometimes you even mirror each other's breathing, and then they feel like, they feel like you are two sides of the same coin. So
Oh
Dan did
wow.
that little trick, and then August started to feel this deep connection with Dan, that was really quite special and really quite moving and added so much to the subtext of the scene. I really am grateful to Dan for that. And then it was funny because then we flipped around the camera for August's coverage.
Hmm.
And what Dan would do when we were adjusting the lights is he would always hide his face because he didn't want his concentration shaken by
Gotcha.
any of the things happening around him. And the crew was really great because they knew that and they were really quiet around Dan and really gentle around Dan. But then August started mirroring Dan. Like August like hit his too, It's like so August suddenly started copying Dan. It was really interesting and really fun. And then when I watched the scene, it does that combination of a scene that was really rewarding to rehearse and shoot, and then a scene that has personal resonance for me, because working with one of the actors you admired ever since you were little is always very formative and important. And Dan knew that. Like I told Dan straight up, but they say you shouldn't be like treat your heroes like heroes, but I told him right away. I was like, look, I'm really happy you're here. Blood Simple is an important movie to me, and Dan really responded well to that.
Nice.
He knew that it was important to me, and he knew that I loved Blood Simple, and then somehow he knew that, like, if he pitched his performance, like, oh yeah, the other thing, fine, I'll sum up by saying that Dan, when he was thinking about playing the sheriff, he wasn't thinking about how will I play the sheriff. He's done
Yeah.
200 movies. He's done you could play the sheriff 200 different ways.
Oh yeah, of course.
But he asked me, like, what is the movie about for you, and what are the themes of the movie for you, and what does the game of Slapface mean for you? He wanted to know all about the world of the movie.
Gotcha.
And then once he knew that, the other thing that was special about Dan is he's also a painter and an artist.
Oh
So he
wow.
looked at himself playing the sheriff as a part of the canvas. He looked at himself as a mosaic in the larger work. Like, how did he fit in? Like, by asking me all those questions, he knew where to pitch his performance. And that was really
Nice.
great. Like, it was really inspirational working with him as an actor. And his enthusiasm for acting is not going away. He was 79 when he shot the movie, and he still loves
Oh,
acting just as much as he always did. I hope when I'm 79 and 80 years old, I have the same youthful enthusiasm
yeah,
for the work.
exactly.
Because, like, watching a guy like that, you're like, yeah, that's where I want to be when I'm his age.
Wow, nice. And where can fans find you at, like with your socials and pages and
Well, the best way to find out about Slapface is on Twitter and Instagram. It's Slapface Film, and then on Facebook, it's Slapface Feature Film. Because if you don't do Slapface Feature Film, you'll wind up with the short, which is fine too. But, like, that was a couple of years back. And then my website is kippfilms.com. So KIPP films with an S.com. I haven't updated it recently because I've been so awfully busy with Slapface and with this next feature that I'm doing.
yeah.
But if people want to see some previous work from the Wayback Machine, they can go there.
Awesome. Well, I definitely would love to have you back on when you're done shooting your next horror film and we could
I would love
talk
that. This
about
was a
that.
really great conversation. It was really
Yeah,
nice to be here.
definitely. Like you're awesome. Like I love talking to someone who loves horror because I that's
Yeah.
my favorite.
Yeah, me too. So the next feature is going to be shot in Savannah, Georgia. It's also got a monster in it, a very different kind of monster
Okay.
than in Slapface, and it's based in Southern folklore, which is really exciting to
Oh
me because I'm
wow.
from New England, and a lot of the films I've been shooting recently have been in upstate New York. So going down south feels like a whole new world to me, and a whole new culture, and that culture produces a whole different kind of monster. So I'm really excited to share that with everybody, either
Oh
later this year
sweet.
or early next.
Nice. I am looking forward to seeing it and definitely having you back on again to talk about it.
That sounds great.
All right, sweet. Well, thank thank you so much for doing this and taking time out. I know you're very busy. So thanks for doing the show.
Hey, my pleasure.
Awesome. Well, have a good weekend and
Hey,
thank
thanks,
you
man.
again, buddy.